we're all pointing fingers at footballers, but then who's paying the footballers, It's like we're focusing so much on the millionaires that we don't even see the billionaires.
Hi guys, and welcome to the Whipping It In podcast, the podcast you didn't ask for. And today we'll be talking about the coronavirus, the impact it has on the Premier League. So to kick off, we're looking at the league table right now, and we're looking at the current situation. And I believe there's some teams have 9 games left, some teams have 10 games left. So Rahat would focus on the top half of the league. Lewis is going to focus on the bottom half of the league, teams 11 to 20. So I think we'll start off with you, Rahat. I guess Liverpool have won the league in principle, but not mathematically. And if you guys were to receive it as a gift, I don't think you guys, honestly wouldn't, see it as valuable. But apart from Liverpool, and how do you see the top half of the team going and things like that?
So, if after all these years, if after all the stick we've taken, after all, the Gerrards coming second last year, if after all that, our first Premier League title came off the back of the Premier League just giving it to us, it would possibly just end me, because rival fans would never accept that, despite us being 25 points ahead. They'd always just be like, "Oh yeah, you guys didn't actually win it though," and then you just have to hear that for the rest of your life. And I'm just like, nah, I don't have time for this. So ideally, yeah, I do want the season to come back, but in a safe, secure manner. If we look at the table now, so Liverpool 82 points, 9 games left. I think is it 2 games?
Yeah.
2 games to win the league, and one of our games is against Man City as well. So if we win that, it's essentially one game that we need to win the league. So we're in a good position. But like you said, we haven't won it outright, so I don't think it would be fair to give it to us, per se, just because we're 25 points ahead. So bringing it back to the table now, we've got Liverpool 82 points. Not there yet, only 2 games away, but it's all right, guys. Second place, we've got Manchester City, 57 points. They seem to have wrapped up second place because they're 4 points ahead of Leicester City with a game in hand as well. So that's potentially 7 points ahead of Leicester City with only 9 games to play. You've got Chelsea on 48 and Manchester United in 5th place on 45, and 2 dark horses really for the season, Wolverhampton Wanderers and Sheffield United, both on 43 points. Nobody, I guess Wolverhampton Wanderers, you'd expect them to be here, but Sheffield United have been a very surprise challenger. 43 points, they're only 2 points behind Man City, 5 points behind Chelsea, and Sheffield United do have a game in hand. So, are we looking at Sheffield United for a top 4 spot?
I was going to add the Man City Champions League spot as well. That's all up in the air as well at this point in time. So we don't really know if they've their ban's going to be upheld or anything. So potentially that 5th place spot, whoever gets in, could potentially, get into the Champions League. Do you see anyone, Rahat, in particular, from the dark horses you mentioned? Any favourites on your mind? Because Sheffield or Wolverhampton could easily, or even United, could easily get into that place. Do you have any thoughts?
They could. And we haven't even spoken about Tottenham and Arsenal yet, have we? They're so far languishing down. Tottenham, 41 points. Arsenal sitting on 9th game in hand on 40 points. So if they win that game in hand, I'm not sure who the games, but they go level with Wolverhampton and Sheffield. So assuming Manchester City do drop out of the Champions League, we haven't seen a Champions League ban for a while. I don't think. But assuming they do not get allowed to enter back in, we've got Leicester City taking the next spot. We've got Chelsea. Manchester United are now looking at being the 4th place Champions League position. Now, if Manchester United is what is normally the 4th spot, and you've got 2 teams who are only 2 points behind Manchester United, and you've got Tottenham and Arsenal, who are 4 and 5 points behind Manchester United. You've got a very, very hot race for the fourth Champions League position, regardless of where Manchester City finish. So, can Manchester United hold on to their advantage over the teams in their last 9 games? Well, if you have a look at their fixture list, Manchester United have a slim lead over their Champions League rivals for that fourth Champions League position. If you have a look at their fixture list, they've got Spurs away, and then after that, apart from Leicester away last game of the season, which generally most things are wrapped up at the last game of the season, not a lot of things are left till the last kick. But apart from that, they've got Sheffield United home, Brighton away, Bournemouth, Aston Villa, Southampton, Crystal Palace, West Ham. So you would envision Manchester United being able to beat all these teams and hold on to their lead. But this is Manchester United we're talking about. They're not the old rampaging threat that they used to be under Sir Alex Ferguson. So can they slip up? Yeah, I mean Brighton are a tricky team away. Southampton, Crystal Palace. You never know when they decide to play good football. Leicester always trouble, Spurs always trouble. So it's going to be an interesting top four race. Nothing is set in stone. If you look at Chelsea as well, Chelsea got City and Liverpool in their last 9, and Arsenal have a semi-difficult run-in. So there's a lot to be decided, really. So in that regard, it's important that the league does come back, because if you start handing out the trophy for Liverpool as the one sort of like definite of this campaign, you can't say for definite anything else that's been decided this campaign. You can't say the second, third, and fourth Champions League positions have been decided. You can't say Europa League has been decided. You can't say the relegation positions have been decided. So you can't really, on the basis of that, nothing else has been definite. You can't then just make one definite in that Liverpool are going to make. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And Lewis, going to you, talking about the bottom half of the table, obviously there's a huge relegation battle between Bournemouth, Watford, and West Ham at this point around that area. Even Aston Villa, to an extent, they're not. I mean, they can win a game and get out because they have a game in hand with 28 games. How do you see things playing out? Do you have any concerns for any particular team? Are there any big games coming up between them? Or even another team going into that? Do you see anything happening?
Yeah, so definitely. I call this the race to 40 points. So I think one manager said, if you get 40 points, you're safe from survival. But Norwich are looking a bit bleak. They got 21 points, so they're 6 points behind, 17th place, which is Watford, and they played the 29 games. And then, like you said, Aston Villa is playing 28. So they're the only team in the bottom half to be able to. You got one game in hand, but so I really see the bottom 6. So you got the Brightons, you got the West Hams, you got the Watfords, Bournemouth, Aston Villa, and then Norwich. So these are the sides that really are in fear of dropping down into the championships, and there's huge financial implications on each team if they go into the championship. So all of the last these 6 sides have all lost. So the last game, and they've all got really bad forms for the last 5 games. So the bottom 3, they've all lost 4 out of 5 games, or lost or drawn. If you're at the bottom 3, so they've lost or drawn the last 5 games. So out of the last 5 games, they lost or drawn. So it's really it's had really the stoppage of players really had a massive impact on these bottom half clubs. So it's really having a question mark on their futures, on their successes, or whether they stay in the Premier League or whether they drop down to the Championship. So looking into continuing the league is is vital for these teams. And also look at the fixtures for some of these clubs. So the last game of the season, so last week of the season. So we've got Bournemouth versus Southampton, you got Brighton versus Newcastle, West Ham versus Aston Villa. And these are all vital games for the teams that they should be able to win. So Brighton are at home, Bournemouth is at home at Southampton. So they can all pick up points during this breaking period of the Premier League. So it would be hugely important for these clubs to be able to know whether they can continue with the league or is it stopped. So, and there's also like huge financial impact, as I said before, like £40 million could be lost instantly if you drop down into the Championship.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to add the teams being promoted. I believe it's going to be possible. Well, obviously, Leeds and
West Brom in second place with 70 points.
Yeah, so possibly Leeds going up. There's West Brom, and then Fulham, I think, is in and around the area. And so, these are huge implications for these teams. Like they could essentially have legal battles with the Premier League, saying, you guys stopped it, or you guys didn't let us promote. So, I mean, it's not just them fighting, but huge financial issues and burdens for the clubs. And one comes into mind is Aston Villa, because I was looking into them, and as we know, their top player is Jack Grealish, and if Aston Villa doesn't make it through, a lot of sides, when they go down to the Championship, they have to sell a lot of their top players. Do you see that happening? Do you see any of the players being loyal, or is football ruthless, Lewis? Do you think these players like Grealish plan to go?
Yeah, I definitely think like these top players.
Pookie is the big one, isn't it? Pookie, was he this season? Pookie,
yeah.
But
he's kind of dropped off for the moment. I think he has 11 goals. He hasn't scored in the last few games. So, but mainly you got Jack Grealish, a few of the Bournemouth players. So like Callum Wilson, Ryan Fraser's got his contract coming up, so he's out of contract. Tom Heaton from Aston Villa. You got Watford's Ismail Sarr, Troy Deeney, all these amazing players. Yeah, shark man. So I definitely feel like they could go the Jack Butland route, where they play in the Championship for 2 seasons, or they got club loyalty. But I think generally a lot of players do move into the Premier League, such as I think there's quite a few like West Ham are bought, or Southampton are bought in the Championship, or even like Gigi Wijnaldum from Newcastle when he got relegated. But I think there will be a lot of exodus of players, like star players like Tom Cantwell, Jack Grealish, who will be looking into going to like Premier League. So look at Ryan Sessegnon as well. So he was in Fulham last season, then they got relegated and he got bought in by Tottenham Hotspur. So I think most players these clubs will lose their star players. But for example, there's rumours of Jack Grealish going to Man United.
Yeah.
So that'll probably there's rumours of Jack Grealish going everywhere. Like, which club isn't linked?
Yeah, that's true. So that's the expiring contracts. Any expiring contracts from the top side of the league, top half of the league, Rahat? Any in particular that you've noted?
So generally, there's about roughly around 60 players who have in the entire Premier League who have their contracts that are going to be expiring in June. So there's a question like, if they expire in June, are they just gone? Do you sign them to like a 1-month contract, or do these guys want to stay for longer? One of the most high-profile ones, David Silva, his contract is due to be up in June. And I think he said this season was going to be his last season, right?
Yeah, he said.
Then, what does he want to do? Does he want to commit to another month, a year, or does he just want to say, okay, guys, I'll see you back in Spain? So another few high-profile players. You got Jan Vertonghen for Tottenham. As Lewis mentioned, you got Ryan Fraser, still only 26. So if somebody picks up Ryan Fraser on a free, say like a big team or maybe the middle pack team, and they've got a good left winger who's got still a lot left in his engine. You got Chelsea have a trio: Willian, Pedro, and our number 10 from the last podcast, Olivier Giroud. You've got and then you've got some other young players. John Lundstrom, who's been tearing up the league and has been a proper asset for fantasy football managers all around the country. You've got maybe Jeff Hendrick, Adam Ronaldo, stuff like that. So there are a few high-profile players who are going to have their contracts coming up. And it is a serious question, like what to do with these guys, you know?
Yeah, it's a weird scenario where if the player finishes in their contracts in around June and the Premier League maybe stops or starts, or even like for example Chelsea, we bought Hakim Ziyech, and he's planning to join in around the June-July period, and he's already done his interviews for Chelsea, and things like that. And what's funny is, does he like join if the Premier League starts from like May, June? Does he like wear his Chelsea shirt and then leave Ajax midway through maybe their campaign if they do something like a 40-day or a 8-week period of completing the league? Like there's so many, I think, uncertainty in the air of what is going to happen, how does things conclude. So it's not, so it's like
contract negotiations. As our Chelsea man, how are contract negotiations going with say Willian, Pedro, Olivier Giroud? Were they looking likely to get re-signed, or were they looking to get moved on?
So for sure, I think Pedro he was the least most likely to leave, because his pace has finished, shooting, vision. It wasn't very good. And we had bought and kind of trained up a couple of new wingers like Hudson-Odoi, Pulisic coming into the mix, Mason Mount playing a couple times on each wing. So I think his times were pretty much over. I think Giroud, there's still a question mark, I think, with him, because he still can provide that target man, that second option, which a lot of teams need, a plan B. When things aren't going your way, you just put a cross in and he can get his head down on it and see what happens. So I think Giroud is still 50-50, but I think probably more likely he'll go. Only because I don't think Lampard wants to play his style of football and focus on that. Because I think with United, when they saw Fellaini, they didn't like having that option. So despite him being a good player, I don't think Mark Goldbridge from the United stand really liked him. You can find a YouTube video on that of him screaming at Fellaini. But the point is, and Willian, I think, is probably the most likeliest, but I don't think he's going to stay. If anything, I really liked him to stay because I think he's still got a lot of attributes. Yeah. I think he has been one of our most underrated players for the past 5 years, for sure. I think because Hazard's taking the spotlight, no one talks about Willian, but he's a quality player. So if anything, it's hard to say which one is most likely, but if I had to choose out of the three, I'd say Willian to continue maybe a year or two more. So I just wanted to move on to the TV revenue fines. Do you guys want to say anything? Because I was reading something and it said Sky Sports won't exercise, like to charge the Premier League in terms of, the finances, etc. Do you guys see BT Sports and Sky Sports charging the Premier League for not airing their games? How do you guys see it? And what is the figure that they're charging? They could potentially charge the Premier League. Do you guys know that?
Yeah. So I don't think Sky Sports for this season will, but they'll look for incentives for next season. So they want more games that can be aired on their Super Sundays or Saturdays or early football. So they want more matches to compensate for the loss of revenue or not fulfilling their contract for this season. So potentially the football clubs are faced with a £750 million fine for not completing the season before, I believe, it was the 31st of July. So if they don't play all the matches before that, each club has to pay £37 million per club. You look at these clubs, can they afford it? So a lot of the clubs, they've asked to furlong a lot of their staff, non-playing staff.
Yeah,
But
Liverpool.
also you look at Liverpool, Tottenham. It's all happening everywhere. Watford, Bournemouth. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all doing it. Newcastle. Yeah.
But I think BT, they haven't said anything like publicly. But I think they maybe, if it doesn't work out well, maybe they would look into thinking of getting a bit of that money back, or looking for similar deals such as Sky Sports, looking at more games for next season, or more exclusive access. Yeah, but I think with the up and trend of like Amazon, so with the Tottenham's documentary, maybe it's phasing away from like the Sky Sports, BT Sports. So maybe I think Amazon in December they had a 2-week deal with the Barclays Premier League to exclusively air games. So maybe Amazon said, I want a bit of this piece of the pie as well. So they may enter talks. Yeah, because I definitely think like Amazon are going to more like football. So they were thinking of doing the Spurs naming rights. I think they were thinking of doing like 200 million for the naming rights.
And you, Rahat, do you see any fines? Do you want to mention anything to that?
Yeah, that the EPL or the Premier League have to pay back to the broadcasters. It's around 750 million, like Bill said. So one proposal the Premier League had was to ask all 20 clubs to give up 30% of their wage bill. So done like, a little bit of research here. So the wage bill is around about 2 billion here for all 20 clubs. So you're looking at 30% of 2 billion is around about 600 million, right? We've got the brains here, right?
Yeah, man.
Anyway, so back. So if the clubs did give up, or if the clubs did manage to successfully negotiate a 30% pay cut, then they'd be able to recoup a lot of the money that they're being asked to give back to the Premier League, who then have to give it back to the broadcasters. So you in a sort of like system, you're looking at player gives up money to the club gives up money to the Premier League gives up money to the broadcasters. And broadcasters are greedy. So, and then in terms of like match day revenue, season tickets, stuff like that, a number that's been given around is that Liverpool are looking to lose 55 million if the season doesn't restart or continue or finish. It's a hefty wage packet. Even struggling clubs like Burnley are on course to lose something around 50 million.
So I did a university paper on Arsenal and their finances, and one of the things I found out was per match day, it's around 4 million they make, and you times that by what, 40 as an example, 40 games in a season, and that's 160 million gone. Obviously not all of it, but that's the potential that they can make, and they're not going to get all of it. So that's a lot of money. But do you think, just going back to it, do you think the Premier League should compensate, or season ticket holders will be supported? Do you think any incentive from clubs should be provided for the fans in this turmoil?
So in terms of fans, like I think the only club that said they're gonna refund fans if the season's not played out is Man United. So props to them for saying that if the season doesn't continue, they're willing to pay back their fans.
Every podcast you do, I always think you're getting more away from Liverpool than ever. Last podcast, Costa. This podcast, United doing really well. Man. It's just next one is going to be Man City should win the World Cup, or something.
Yeah. But
sorry, go on, United.
I'm just a fan of football. I love it when clubs do something different, like they give back to their fans. And I think they make so much money, like not only in the UK but in the world. So you're looking at Asia, you got the USA. So it's nice to hear when a club gives back to their fans. Yeah.
Are footballers scapegoats in this whole interaction? Are they, being picked on quite easily? In some ways, they are. Like, if anything, Rooney is the most public one on this matter, saying this is unfair for us. And there's been discussion about bullying. Why is it always Premier League players that gets picked on? And in some ways, I kind of see his point, because you're making, you are making money, but it's not like you've done it illegally or you haven't earned it the right way. They've had the hard work. They've, from their childhood, these Premier League players, to become a top player, you have to start really young, unless you're Vardy. But they've done so much hard work. I don't know. What do you guys think? I think it's personally unfair, but what do you guys think?
Yeah, so we've had footballers have come under a lot of stick. The Health Secretary, Matt, whatever his name is, he came out and said footballers should come and do their bit, and he's kind of like, just saying, oh, just give up your wages, Footballers have been made out to be a lot of scapegoats. We've had some defenders for the cause. We've had, like you said, Wayne Rooney speak up. We've had Alan Shearer, Ian Wright, and there was a fullback. I think it was Danny Rose. He came up and said, everything isn't as cushy as it seems. So if you just want to look at, say, the wage bill, for example, that I mentioned earlier, we're looking at $2 billion for the whole league. But 70% of that wage bill is within the top six. So you're looking at a 70% spread of that $2 billion concentrated within the top six clubs, which are not in order, but Chelsea, Manchester City, Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal, and Tottenham. So you've got 30% of $2 billion, which is still a lot, but you're still looking at a very small piece of the pie being spread out by 14 whole clubs and each club have their own, they have their playing staff, and then they have their coaching staff, they have their hospitality staff, they have their security staff and maintenance staff, things like that as well. So it's not as if they have like this endless, pot of money that they can just keep, digging into. And you want to just look at some cases now. So, just to give a few examples here, we've got Alexis Sanchez earning nearly $500,000 every week at Manchester United, and he isn't even at Manchester United. He's playing in Italy, Obviously, Italy probably isn't the place to be right now, but it's Alexis Sanchez who gives the notion that every footballer is earning $500,000, whereas it's just him. If we want to look at some more examples, we got from Manchester United as well. We've got David De Gea, who his annual salary is roughly about 20 million, 19.5 million in that ballpark. But then if we look at the opposite end of the spectrum, Isaac Hayden, Newcastle's centre midfielder, is on roughly about 1 million a year. Obviously, I'm not crying tears for him, but it's just this notion that footballers are just like so well off and so like removed from society that it's like, as soon as society hits, it's them to be the first ones to give up. And they're earning their wage and their employment in a legal, lawful manner. If an employer values his employee at 20 million a year, who's anybody else to say no? You can't forcibly make somebody else value another person to what you want to do them, if that makes sense. Yeah. So, I don't like this notion that footballers should be the first ones to take the hit, so to speak. Think about who's paying all these people, So if you think David De Gea is rich, how rich must the person paying David De Gea be? Because he's not only paying...
United,
Yeah, exactly. He's not only paying David De Gea. He's paying Paul Pogba, Anthony Martial. He's paying for Alexis Sanchez, who's on another club. Because I know Inter weren't going to pay for Alexis Sanchez. I don't know who would at this point. He's dropped off so much. You've still got Marcus Rashford. Harry Maguire is probably going to want some money. Juan Mata is still on their books. So, we're all pointing fingers at footballers, but then who's paying the footballers, It's like we're focusing so much on the millionaires that we don't even see the billionaires,
Preach.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that they shouldn't contribute. And the thing is, a lot of footballers have contributed. They have helped. They have their own initiatives. You can look on Instagram, social media, and you can see like this footballer's doing this, etc. So I mean, they're doing their bit. But for somebody to forcibly come and say, "Oh, hey, give up your paycheck," I mean, it doesn't sit right with me, and I don't think it's just right with a lot of people either. Especially when they're earning in a a legal, lawful manner.
Do you want to add anything to that, Lewis?
Yeah, like I'll go back to the point of the owners. So like Norwich, so I got an article here on like the ranked owners, like the wealth. So apparently Newcastle's new ones are going to be 320 billion. Like they're the top, and then Man City's like 223 billion, and you got the bottom is like Norwich is like 23 million. Delia Smith.
Can we sorry, before you add on, like, can we just sink in the fact that like Newcastle's owners are like 10 times bigger than Man City's owners, and we thought Man City's owners were bad and had a lot of money. Like Newcastle's ones potentially are going to be way more. That's crazy.
Yeah. So like Roman Abramovich 9.6 billion, like Stan Kroenke 6.8 billion, Wolves Guo Guanzhang so 5.2. So these people aren't poor. So like the owners. So, but I think when you look at the bottom half, like Bournemouth is 16, so 900 million, 198 million for Sheffield, 93 for Watford, 62 for Burnley, like 23 for Norwich. I think there's such a wage disparity, like, so it's unfair. Like Tottenham, they tried to furlong their staff. So how can an owner with 3.9 billion say they can furlong their staff? But I think it's something like Watford is acceptable. So like, I think Watford, they furlonged their staff, they confirmed it. So I can understand why the owners of Watford, they would want to furlong their staff. But I cannot see it for like Tottenham or Liverpool, where the owners are like 2.1 billion for Liverpool as well, John W. Henry.
The top 6 Premier League clubs in the Forbes valuation are all in the top 10. So we've got, so this is in order now. Manchester United have a net worth of about $3.8 billion in the Forbes list for 2019. You got Manchester City in 5th, so 2nd in the Premier League, but 5th in the world. 2.6 billion. Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool, Tottenham. Tottenham have the list of about 1.6 billion. Everybody else is between 2 and 3 billion. So you look at these clubs, 6 of the Premier League clubs, the top 6, who also have 70% of the wage bill on their books. Those top 6 clubs are in the top 10 of the Forbes evaluation of the most valuable football clubs. So, when you look at these same clubs furloughing staff, I mean, when you look at Liverpool and their valuation of 2.1 billion, and then you see them furloughing staff and then asking the government to pay for their non-playing staff. I know they reversed this decision, but like, I don't understand how you could ever think it was a good decision. No. Yes, Liverpool don't have an endless pocket of money, but their pockets dig pretty deep. You know what I mean?
I mean, I was going to add. Look, I'm not defending it or anything, but I'm just trying to say, like, where there's loopholes, people are always going to do that, and it's always human nature to like.
I mean, yeah.
Like whether it's right or wrong, that's another discussion. But if there is loopholes, trying to play devil's advocate here, are you not going to take if you were the owner and the government said to you,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's what I'm trying to.
If you want to put your absolute business brain on, you'd be like, yeah, why should we pay when the government said they're going to pay?
Yeah.
You would. If you want to put your absolute business brain on, it makes sense. But I mean,
morally, of course, is a different discussion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I was going to add. So for people who don't know how furlough works, I was speaking to a couple of friends at companies who are dealing with the HR side of things, and they said the way furlough works is, so the company has to pay you first, and you've got to show proof that. So, for example, Rahat is my boss. Rahat pays me, and then Rahat has to show the taxman that he's HMRC, that he's paid my wages. So then on the books, they can claim that back. I mean, yeah, of course, on a business sense, and only if you think about it, Liverpool, other clubs only reversed their decision based on the backlash that they got from fans, from the media, that, oh, you're earning this much, why are you making the government pay?
Yeah.
And the discussion, I think it's kind of unfair to look at people when they do contribute as well. So like when players give, let's say, 100,000 or 1,000,000 or whatever they give, to say, oh, why don't you pay more? But I think we should like be grateful that people are giving, because essentially we could be like Google, who doesn't pay any tax, and just say, or Costa Coffee, just say we're happy with this and we're going to leave it like that. But the fact that they give, we should always be thankful. And the final point is talking about the possible solutions. So I've written out a few solutions that I think are possible, and we'll just discuss it. So solution A is, well, cancel the season. Because for me, if I be honest, if we cancel the season for Chelsea, it's really good. Speaking purely on a greedy point of view, it's good for us, because if it finishes as how the league stands, but it's much more complicated than that. Obviously, I know that. But let's say the league finishes. Technically, Liverpool do win the league, but it's obviously everyone's going to say it's gifted. Blah blah blah. Chelsea get into that 4th place. We get the money. We get a few more players. Just rebuilding that stage. But do you guys just want to talk about the good and the bad about just cancelling the season, and maybe talk, Lewis? You can mention about the Championship sides like Leeds and West Brom and what implications that can be. So do you want to start off, Lewis, with that?
In terms of cancelling the season, so in terms of the benefits, you're looking at the health implications for the players. So a lot of the players, there's like, if they're not playing, there's less chance of them to get the virus. So in terms of that, so it'd be really the safest option for them. So a few of the lower leagues are like the National Players Conference League, so they've cancelled the season already. So they've completely stopped the league altogether. So this will have, of course, effects on like the promotion and relegation. So the impact of like Leeds and the West Brom Albions and the Fulhams. So I think Leeds have been waiting like maybe over 15 years to get promoted, and it could be another year for them to wait for them to get promoted. So how does this impact like the manager? I think Marco Baselli as well for Leeds United. He wanted to he was going to leave if he didn't get promoted. So I think he said that last season where he wasn't quite able to get promoted. So what's the effect of that as well? So really loads of spiraling like implications of each team. For example, like the top half. So does the Premier League stay as it is? Like everyone's is voided and every position stays the same. So what happens to Man United, the Wolverhampton, the Sheffield Uniteds, and then also the relegation teams? So is it fair for Norwich, Aston Villa, and Watford to go down? Is that the most fairest way?
Norwich, Aston Villa, and
Bournemouth.
Is it fair for them to stay up after you had a bad season?
I mean, the thing is, who are we to justify this? Like, I'll give an example.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's the question, number one. And number two is, if you remember, the best example is Leicester. They basically survived relegation, Leicester, before the season that they won the league. And the fact that they've gone on to achieve that will go down as one of the greatest miracles of the Premier League. But again, are we able to judge that? In any team's last 9-10 games, we've seen before, like when they're in the relegation battle, they'll beat the top teams. They'll park the bus. They'll park 2 buses. They will do anything in their powers just to like stay within the league. And Arsenal right now, they're out of the Europa League. They're out of all the competitions, majority of the competitions. They can focus on the league. Even to an extent, there's certain clubs that are going to think like, we're out of all the competitions. We've got 10 games left. We have nothing more else to focus on. We have 1 game a week. So I don't think it's fair for us to say cancel the season.
It's a bit of like a video game response, isn't it? Just to restart the level, something like that. Whether it's the best one, I don't think so. I think they just raises too many questions as to what's going to happen. Like who qualifies for the Champions League? For the 2021 season, do you go off 2019 or do you go off 2020?
Yeah.
Lewis, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, so I think some owners also said I think the best response would be to cancel the season. I think it was Karen Brady from West Ham. She said the league should be cancelled or void. And then also, when I'm looking at other leagues as well, such as the Italian league, so the Brescia owners who are in relegation zone said they would much prefer to protect the players and the health of the staff and the fans to cancel the league, and they wouldn't mind like dropping into relegation. So I think it's a two-edged sword. Like you're looking at the top half and the bottom, the implications of the bottom half for the relegation or promotion for championships. So,
just to add another opinion there, Brighton's owner said Premier League clubs shouldn't be relegated if the season isn't completed. So, he can take that as two ways, as that, cancel the season but don't relegate anybody, or finish the season and then, the results are the results. But he's not an advocate for just ending the season as is and then just sort of like giving out trophies and relegation and stuff like that.
Yeah. The other option, so solution B, is remove certain competitions and extend this season. Obviously, it's a big thing, cancelling a Euro 2021, possibly. So the summer, they have a little bit more time if needed to be run over. And remember, in 2022 is the Qatar World Cup. And that starts in December, so that's it has a lot of implications there. And possibly cut off a Carling Cup competition, Carabao Cup, sorry.
Carabao Cup.
Carabao Cup, yeah. Thing is, could we cut some of these competitions, such as the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup, and possibly a Euro 2021, just to extend this season, and so the players get sufficient break, and start the 2020 to 2021 season a little bit later. Could that work? Could that be a solution? What do you guys think?
So this is where I start being harsh again to the footballers. So, their job is to play football. Their job is being healthy, fit enough, maintaining, a good stamina level, being, as injury-free as possible, taking good, sports rehab, things like that. Just making sure they're in good condition to go always. So in terms of cutting the FA Cup, at the moment, we're on the quarter-final. 8 Premier League teams. A few of those teams within the FA Cup quarter-final have 10 games left. So they have an extra game to play in the Premier League as well. So you're looking at 3 rounds. You've got quarter-final, semi-final, final. So, if you just sort of think about it in your head, you go oh yeah, they could all just play them on 3 days spread out over 2 weeks or something like that. But then you've got to factor in travel. Players already going to have a huge workload.
Is it from the semi-final and final? It's played at Wembley, isn't it? It's not quarters, right?
Yeah, it's at semi-final.
Okay.
So I mean, if you want a perfect scenario, Arsenal win. Arsenal beat Sheffield United, so they don't have a long bus journey. Is Norwich closer to London than Manchester?
Yeah.
Right, so let's have Norwich win. We'll have Chelsea win, and we'll have Man City win. All the teams that are closest to London, let's just have them win, and then we have a short bus ride, innit? Yeah. We'll have an Arsenal-Chelsea final, innit? 10 minutes on the tube. Sorts out all the problem. But yeah,
in reality, we know
it's going to be very hard to fit in alongside the season. Whether you want to do it after the season as kind of like a mini tournament kind of thing, say kind of like a group stages of a World Cup, if you imagine. You have games every day, something like that. That's maybe an option. But you got to think about for 2 semi-finals and a final, if they're all going to be played on one stadium, the groundsman is going to have one hell of a job, to get the pitch ready for 3 games, and all in a tight space.
So the other solution was the 40 days to complete, or 8 weeks that's come up, because I think that's going to be really intense on the players. some things obviously they should be fitness, but we've realized like when players play like 2-3 games in a week and then they have to play again, like it's very intense. And where the Spanish leagues, Italian leagues, to an extent German leagues have benefited. I know now we've implemented like a winter break, but to play so many games, it does, whether we like it or not, yeah, they do get paid great money, etc. But it's still effect on the body. It's like, you know, we all play football. It's not like we play football 3 times intensively in a week and feel like, yeah, let's do another game. And it does take a massive toll on the body. And, you know, it's not the easiest thing to recover, regardless of whether you've done it 100 or 1 times. So Lewis, I'll start off with you. Do you think it can be, I mean, obviously it can be done 40 days, but do you think it is a good thing to do, or is it a bad view?
So I'm going to draw to the NBA. So I think NBA, they play 4 times a week. So on a different surface as well. So like hard court. So this is a complete different surface than grass, which is more strenuous on the joints. So a lot of these players have ACL tears or ankle injuries, or because they could be out for a long time. But also they're traveling not only from like, so it could be like the Lakers, for example. They could be moving to the Philadelphia 76ers and then coming back to play for the Lakers. So there's a lot of travel involved in the week period. So if this was the case to play the game in 40 days, I think we'd have to look into the NBA season, looking at travel, making sure that players are tested all the time, so making sure they don't carry the coronavirus and it can be spread to other players. But there's also the issue, there's a period of where the coronavirus is invisible to testing. So it would be very difficult for the Premier League to say this is completely safe, that the players won't be able to catch the coronavirus. But I think a lot of the teams are going back into training. So like I think Man United, Tottenham, they're all going back into training, but in their own way. So like Liverpool, they were doing Zoom conferences. So everyone's had their own bike and they're able to train on their own. So this is definitely a way to get the players back into fitness. But in terms of playing actual games, so I think it'll be behind closed doors.
Yeah.
But there's behind closed doors with limited staffing around. So I think a lot of the teams before the coronavirus, like Inter Milan in the Italian league, they started to look into that, but then they ultimately cancelled. I think
we're looking at 9 games for 9 or 10 games for the teams over the 40-day weekend. So 40 divided by 9 is 36. Roughly a game once every 5 days, something like that. So it's not like crazy intense. Like I think it's doable.
Yeah.
The only thing you got to factor in is things like travel time and making sure that nobody picks up injuries, something like that, and just more the logistics of it rather than the actual playing, because 10 games in 40 days doesn't sound like hell. It doesn't sound like the winter break where you have like 40 games in 2 days, you know. During the Christmas period, you know, you have like Boxing Day 2 days after, and then you got like 2 days after that again. So I think, you know, that Christmas period is a lot more hectic than this 40-day period that they're scheduling. So, you know, even if the teams that have the most games left, the 10 games, you're only looking at once every 4 days. So, yeah, they got travel time.
Still not bad.
It's not bad. Yeah. I think it's a lot more feasible to go ahead with this idea, and I hope it does. You know, once everything's safe, once like the players have been tested and all the relevant health procedures have been carried out. But I think the 40-day period possibly seems like the best idea to go through. It's just going to be a lot of logistical work in terms of like travel, in terms of making sure the pitches are in a good state, making sure like the staff are there, and you also want to look at security as well. And you do run the risk of house parties. So like if football fans can't go to the stadium and they can't go to the pub, are they going to start these large house gatherings, which is like, another conduit for the virus to spread. So football have got to look at that like, yeah, they can look back and say, okay, yeah, we told them to stay in the house. We didn't tell them to gather in a house party. But like, if it happens because of the football game, the footballers kind of have to take responsibility for that. Obviously, you can't be responsible for idiots' actions, but there probably is going to be someone out there who might do that, who might flaunt the guidelines are in place at the moment. So, it's a big picture, but I think it's probably the most feasible idea.
There's one more that I'll chuck in, which Lewis briefly mentioned, is the playoff idea. So this idea came from France, and where I believe it's certain positions and certain numbers in the league table play off against each other and see where the result will lie. And even in cup competitions, that'll kick off. But so, for example, in France, in the Ligue 1 division, PSG's first, Marseille second, Rennes third, and Lille at fourth. And one of the funny things, imagine if, for example, Lille at fourth wins the French Ligue 1, or Chelsea, as an example, somehow wins the Premier League. Obviously, it would be unfair, but do you guys see the Premier League doing something like this? Is it too out of the ordinary to implement?
So are you looking at playoffs just for the league and the Champions League and then relegation, or?
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at more league table, so like positions 1 to 4 and possibly like 20 to, I don't know, let's say position 17 or 16, and they have a match. They have matches like that, playoffs.
If you look at the league table now, you've got 5 teams under 30 points. So, do you make it like a 6-team playoff? But then a 6-team playoff is like quite hard. You want like something that's divisible by 4. So then do you just drag 2 teams in just to make a playoff sake of it? Or like it'd be 15th and 14th, do they just get dragged into a relegation playoff, even though they're safe?
Yeah.
And then if you look at the Champions League race on the other side, like we said before, so you've got Man City, Leicester, Manchester United, Chelsea, Manchester United, Wolves, Sheffield, Arsenal, Tottenham. So that's 9 teams. So then, how is that, going to work? I think it's a bit too hard. I think a bit too complex and possibly a bit unnecessary as well.
I mean, I was going to say it's probably the unfairest if another team, apart from Liverpool, won somehow the league in those extraordinary circumstances, and when Liverpool had such a massive gap. So I guess that would probably be the most unfair. I mean, Lewis, do you want to add anything just to round off this point?
I think looking at the other side of the table, so looking at relegation, so would it be like a tournament style, like the Leeds, West Brom, Norwich and Aston Villa, where you could whoever loses or whoever wins stays in the Premier League, so similar to like the Bundesliga. So I think in the Bundesliga, the last position in the relegation zone is played out between the top two, like the Premier League side and the Bundesliga side. So would that be the best option to play for in terms of promotion relegation for the Premier League?
Yeah.
So you got Leeds versus like Bournemouth or Watford to play in the Premier League, or like Fulham versus Aston Villa to see who plays in the Premier League next season. So it might work for the relegation side, but I'm not sure about the Premier, like the top half of the table. So who wins the Premier League, who get the Champions League spots, who gets the Europa League spots. And I think that also each position has a lot of financial implications as well. So like each position is worth significantly more than the previous position before. So having like a mini tournament might help out the relegation zone and decide who is like goes into Premier League or who goes into Championship. So it could work like that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess speaking on behalf of everyone here, but I think we've pretty much come to some sort of conclusion that the 40-day Premier League season ending it, something like that, is probably the most fairest. 3 to 4 games per game after that. It isn't too bad on the body. It's done in Champions League. It's done in Premier League scenarios. So it's not something that can be done. So I think we feel that that's probably the best solution moving forward. Hope you guys haven't turned off the screens in revolt looking at mine.
If you actually looked at us for like 40 minutes, let us know, okay?
Yeah, that'll be interesting. But yeah, thank you for listening. Like, comment, and definitely subscribe to the podcast. And let us know in the comments if there's any topics you would like us to talk about in the future. Thank you for listening. Bye.
It's all, guys.
Yeah. Thank you again. Thank you, everyone.